Senator John Fetterman is in the news because he has a massive New York Magazine expose about him that I find actually fairly generously titled, which is called All by Himself. It's long. I'm not going to read all of it to y'all. It's called All by Himself. John Fetterman insists he's in good health, but staffers, past and present, say they no longer recognize the man they once knew. This is actually a deeply depressing read because it is clear he is mentally unwell, and yet it's hard to have sympathy for him when he has so openly turned his back on the progressive movement that got him elected. Many people, maybe yourselves included, are asking for their donations back. Where he has said he doesn't believe he's a progressive. He has confirmed a lot of Donald Trump's appointees and his cabinet members. He is clearly lost. This man is clearly lost. And on top of that is someone who has taken insane amounts of money from AIPAC and the Israeli lobby, and stands by the idea that students in the streets who are, asking for the genocide, demanding the genocide, and demanding the divestment, the students who, by the way, just 2 days ago had the police called on them because they were watching a documentary, UCLA, of the encampments, called The Encampments. I believe it's a Watermelon Pictures production, which is a new awesome production house. I think Alana Hadid is involved in that. They're watching a documentary of the encampments and they get attacked by the cops for doing what? For watching a documentary, people. Like, we live in a parody. It is absolutely ridiculous. I wouldn't believe it if someone had told me that this is what we're doing. Oh, we would have never done this under Biden. No, they did it under Biden. They did it under Biden. I'm sorry. Sorry to say, this is in California. It's a blue state. We're woke here. No, they do that because it doesn't matter. Because if you stand up for Palestinians, then you don't have a right to speak. The cops have free reign. So Fetterman's been hook, line, and sinker on this. This is track AIPAC, $370,000 from independent contributors. That is, I think that maybe isn't just 1 year. I mean, he hasn't been there very long, but AIPAC has bought and sold this man's soul. So that is part of it. And I want to read a little bit of it that is like really disturbing. So effectively, the biggest thing is that his aide, a guy named Adam Jentleson, was helping him after he got released for his stroke from Walter Reed. Again, remember the stroke that nearly took him out of his own election, where people like myself went to bat for him, even though it was very clear he was not able to, speak. And he was struggling. But that's okay. Just because someone had a stroke doesn't mean their politics aren't good, that we shouldn't support them, right? The jokes made about him were good. No, it was awful. So a lot of folks defended him, including Adam Jentleson, who his chief of staff was proud of his boss for seeking help. He was in a 6 week of inpatient care at Walter Reed for his depression coming out of the stroke. But a year after his release from the hospital, Fetterman's behavior had so alarmed Jentleson, he resigned his position. In May 2024, he wrote an urgent letter to David Williamson, the medical director of the Traumatic Brain Injury and Neuropsychiatry unit at Walter Reed, who'd overseen Fetterman's care at the hospital. Quote, "I think John is on a bad trajectory and I'm really worried about him," the email began. If things didn't change, Jentleson continued, he was concerned Fetterman won't be with us much longer. Which, again, you can only imagine that the pressure of this article and everything, like, I wish this person well. I don't wish anyone to hurt themselves, take their own lives, and then even though he said heinous things, like, he should be well, he should be taken care of, but I don't think he should be a senator anymore. That much is clear. Jentleson wrote this 1,600-word email, subject line, concerns, from eating fast food multiple times a day. We don't know if he's taking his meds. His behavior often suggests he's not. He has conspiratorial thinking, megalomania, for example. He claims to be the most knowledgeable source on Israel and Gaza around, but his sources are just what he reads in the news. He declines most briefings and never reads memos. High highs, low lows, long rambling, repetitive, and self-centered monologues, lying in ways that are painfully, awkwardly obvious to everyone in the room. Fetterman was, according to Jentleson, avoiding. I love that, like, we finally got a young senator and it's John Fetterman. Like, we're just like, oh, we were so close. Like, Dianne Feinstein, which, by the way, a patron said that they also saw Sheldon Adelson rolling out of Dianne Feinstein's office from Wednesday's show, by the way, bonus episode, patreon.com/bitchuation. Remember, you want to get access to that, which is hilarious because, of course, Sheldon Adelson probably lived up in Dianne Feinstein's office. Anyway, the point is like, oh, we got a young one. Damn it. He had a stroke and he's losing his mind and he supports genocide. He was preoccupied with social media platform X, which he previously admitted had been a major accelerant of his depression. He drove his car so recklessly, his staff refused to ride with him. He also bought a gun. He says he has a biometric safe and takes all the necessary precautions and living where he does. I understand the desire for personal protection, he wrote, but this is one of those things you flag. You said to flag, so I'm flagging it. This is Jentleson writing to this doctor. Every person who was supposed to help him stay on his recovery plan has been pushed out. Fetterman was isolated and had damaged personal relationships and was shedding staff. The turmoil in his office continued over the following years. Since winning the 2022 election, he lost one of his closest advisors, including 3 of his top spokespeople, his legislative director, and Jentleson. His circle of trust has shrunk, and the people I spoke with made it clear that they expect more staffers to depart. Oh boy. Jentleson said, quote, part of the tragedy here is that this is a man who could be leading the Democrats out of the wilderness, but I also think he's struggling in a way that shouldn't be hidden from the public. I mean, this is the whistleblower type situation. Elf Song said, is his wife still with him? Very interesting. We'll get to that later. I believe yes, because not 2 weeks ago, what was it? 2 weeks ago, we did a whole story about how Giselle and John Fetterman went to Israel again and met with Netanyahu, and Netanyahu gave him a freaking beeper, a gold or whatever beeper to, laugh at all of the people who were murdered by Israel and Lebanon. I tried to get to the juiciest parts. In early 2023, after Fetterman indeed had been sworn in, members of the Senate, because he thought he wasn't going to get sworn in. He had this he was vexed by this idea that they wouldn't swear him in because he had dealings with Sam Bankman-Fried. And it's like, not everybody had dealings with Sam Bankman-Fried, but he was paranoid that they would find a way not to swear him in. A staffer recalled getting texts from a person at a retreat asking if their boss was okay. Fetterman was sitting at a table by himself, slowly sipping a Coke and refusing to talk with anybody. Later that day, another staffer heard an alarming report from a journalist. Fetterman had just walked obliviously into the road and was nearly struck by a car. Oh my God. An aide found Fetterman walking on Capitol Hill a short time later. Worried that he had suffered another stroke, the staffer whisked him to George Washington University Hospital. Doctors there determined there had been no new stroke, and the dizziness and confusion he experienced was partly owed to severe dehydration. So effectively, he was put on antidepressants, which is good. But then, of course, he got help at Walter Reed. He was admitted on February 15th. You guys remember that. In those first few days, the hospitals were rough. Fetterman was experiencing delusions. He thought if he took a bed at the hospital, he would be arrested. He told doctors he believed members of his family were wearing wires to secretly record him. In one chaotic moment, Fetterman grew convinced that a political rally was being held in the hospital's lobby, and he needed to break out of his room to attend. David Williamson, Fetterman's doctor, told me that the main cause of the delusions were the lingering effects of the stroke, dehydration, and depression, and the original medication for the depression could have also been a factor. Okay, so they stopped all antidepressants and put him on other drugs. Williamson declined to comment on the specifics of the medication plan. Yeah, a lot of this is definitely HIPAA protected. I'm sure Fetterman is freaking out about this right now. It really, I wish this weren't our business. I wish this man were not. And again, the people of Pennsylvania, I wish this were not their business, but it is. The new medication worked and his mood steadily improved. So he started sleeping and eating better. He'd come into the hospital burdened by thoughts of self-harm and indifference about whether he lived or died. Oh God, okay. If the doctor said, oh, by the way, you have 6 months left, I would have been like, okay, whatever, he later told Time magazine. But now with the new treatment plan, Williams said, Fetterman quickly evidenced better mood, brighter effect, and improved motivation, self-attitude, and engagement with others. So he welcomed visitors, on and on and on. So it's like, it's good, but also then October 7th happened. In the days after the October 7th attack, Israel declared war and retaliated with brute force, killing Hamas forces as well as thousands of civilians. In the U.S., progressives began calling for a ceasefire, and Fetterman felt differently. Quote, now is not the time to talk about a ceasefire, he posted on October 18th. We must support Israel in efforts to eliminate Hamas terrorists who slaughter innocent men, women, and children. So in other words, we must slaughter innocent men, women, and children who slaughter innocent men, women, and children. If his base was surprised by this, perhaps they hadn't been paying enough attention. While Israel had not been a prominent issue in his various campaigns, Fetterman had been talking about his support for the country for years. I'm not really a progressive in that sense, he said while campaigning in 2022. Eyes wide open, y'all. When I say that this Israel is a litmus test for Democrats, I mean it. At least for progressive Democrats, at least for people who were going to actually like put, energy and ground game behind. It's a massive liability. Quote, there's no daylight between myself and these kinds of unwavering commitments to Israeli security. Still, it wasn't until October 7th that it became clear that Fetterman was the most outspoken Israel hawk in his party, offering constant and unconditional support for the military action in Gaza. Early on in the conflict, 16 of his former staffers wrote a letter anonymously saying they found his full-throated support for Israel to be, quote, a gutting betrayal. Jentleson had taken to defending Fetterman from such criticisms, posting, the thing about being a staffer is that no one elected you to represent them. But it wasn't just the staffers who were upset. There was also Fetterman's wife, Giselle. Now remember, Giselle would appear on the campaign trail. She was incredibly supportive of him, but she, in her own right, was like kind of a celebrity, a political figure. People loved her. A lot of people liked her more. And she really helped him. And spoke for him during obviously the stroke and went through a lot. So that's some backstory, because I think we've all been like, where the hell is Giselle? Like, what does she think about this? She's a kind-hearted philanthropist, the proprietor of a free store in Braddock that gave away goods and clothing, a formerly undocumented immigrant from Brazil, and a vocal progressive. In early November, just weeks after the attack, Giselle arrived at her husband's. I mean, she better watch out, because if she like says too much in support of Palestinians, I feel like John Fetterman would absolutely revoke her citizenship based on it. Like, or Fetterman will like at Marco Rubio to be like, could you take care of this Hamas supporter who's living in my home? Oops, my wife? Oh, well. In early November, just weeks after the attack, just weeks, November, y'all. Giselle arrived at her husband's Senate office, and according to the staffer present, they got into a heated argument. They're bombing the refugee camps. How can you support this? The staffer recalled her saying with tears in her eyes. That's all propaganda, Fetterman replied. Even the most committed Hasbaris, even your Ben Glebes, you know what I'm saying? Who around this time would get into also private debates about like they just bombed a hospital, and it's like, but that we don't know that was an Israeli attack. Remember that? Remember I forgot the name of one of the first hospitals that was bombed, and it was like, we don't know. And then it was like, well, they're bombing Al Shifa, and it's like, well, there's a bunker underneath. Okay, well, Israel built that bunker. Well, all the more reason. Like the idea that like, the propaganda line isn't that they're bombing refugee camps. The propaganda line is they had to, because insert thing that college students said at UCLA. That's the propaganda. I mean, that's the line you should be saying. The fact that they're bombing refugee camps, like everybody knows that and admits that. The question is, do you think that's wrong, or do you think it's justified ever? Later, still visibly upset, Giselle pulled the staffer aside. She asked him if members of Fetterman's team were pushing him to take these stances for political reasons. The staffer told her that the opposite was true. Many of them were as upset as she was. So this is so interesting. She doesn't have a good enough relationship with her husband to honestly ask him, like, yo, are you doing this because there's money? You know what I mean? Like, what do you, and so she's asking the staffers, is he doing this for political reasons? Is there someone, who's asking him to put out these statements? Is there someone, behind the scenes, like saying like, good on you, support Israel no matter what? Are you guys saying this to him? Many of them were upset. If you're pushing back on this, there's no hope, the staffer recalled her saying. This is horrible news. A few days later, Giselle texted a different staffer, quote, at a breaking point and I can't co-sign this any longer. I'd love some help in language to separate myself from this. Can anyone help me? What the Which is like, I'm assuming she means put out her own individual statement that says she doesn't support what her husband is saying. Carl Fetterman, an insurance executive, was way more conservative than his son. He used to have a magnet on his refrigerator that warned that his dog bites Democrats. Oh, good magnet. And he watched Fox News constantly. When Fox would air segments about Fetterman's strong stances on Israel or invite him on as a guest, the senator's father would, according to former staff, almost always call to say how proud he was. Oh, boy. See, we didn't know this either. We didn't know he had a conservative dad. I mean, it's just like, it doesn't matter, but that can't be helpful. You're losing your mind. You're depressed. You are already a hawk and terrible on Israel. And then every time you go on Fox News to talk about how terrible Gazans are and Palestinians are, your dad calls you and is like, son, I love you. When I see you, I'm going to give you a hug. You've made daddy proud. Like, that's a terrible cocktail. The war on Gaza was also luring Fetterman back to X. He handed over his social media passwords to his staff as part of his recovery plan. But when he saw in December that Pennsylvania protesters had stuck a boycott Israel goods sticker on hummus containers, he approved a post for staff to send. The message adhered to a classic meme format featuring two photos of Drake, one which the rapper appears disgusted by the text that reads, protest the rape of Israeli women and girls, and another which he nodded approvingly to protest hummus. The post roiled his staff. According to one former aide, a group of women who worked in the office argued that the message could be read as hurtful to sexual assault survivors. Members of Fetterman's senior team spent hours urging him to take the post down. The point he was trying to make, the protesters didn't care about the atrocities committed by Hamas, was being lost in the controversy. No shit. According to one of them, Fetterman's response was that he didn't want to give in to the woke mob, and anyone that was upset was welcomed to resign. Eventually, however, he did take it down. And this is the other thing. It's like, let's just keep it 100. Being in a bad mental state, coming out of a stroke, suffering from depression, feeling like you have delusions that like the world is working against you and that everybody hates you secretly and that they're all talking about you behind their back and they're all plotting against you. Aren't I also kind of describing someone who is a rabid Zionist? Like, aren't I also describing someone who believes that everyone who talks about the genocide is secretly anti-Semitic and like we've been plotting this whole time and against our American Jewish friends, and we've just been waiting for Hamas to give us the green light to be able to be mad at Israel for crimes that they have to commit, and that everyone who doesn't get it, and we like I'm not naming names, but there's some of them are in the public eye, maybe having interesting debates right at this very moment, or non-interesting debates. Some of them are in my personal life, some of them I've seen, some of them I know, but like there is definitely a Venn diagram. Shout out to Kamala. There is a Venn diagram of like losing your mind, being a Zionist. Like those two things are kind of related. So I can only imagine, again, the sort of cocktail of insane that is happening in this man's brain. In the final weeks of 2023, a Senate physician called the office, according to a staffer, to say he had seen Fetterman acting bizarrely near the underground trolleys that shuttle people between the Capitol and nearby office buildings. I'm sorry, wait, is Fetterman just the like mentally ill man who's like hanging around public transportation, but like in the Capitol building? Like he's like the Senate's version of that? Because that's really funny. That, I mean, it's not, and everyone deserves to get help, but like I do think that that's oh my God. Just like screaming about Israel by the trolleys. Like, who is that? Oh, that's a senator. I couldn't tell because he wears a very large sweatshirt. He had witnessed Fetterman, seemingly unaware of his surroundings, walk directly into a group of people, nearly bowling them over. Jesus, I just got off with the docs. A staffer wrote to Giselle in the text. They said they called it to debrief. The staffer went on to say that others shared his worries about Fetterman's behavior and that at least 2 top aides were likely to quit soon because of it. I don't want to sound offensive, but I want to be clear that this isn't just me. Everyone here is feeling alarmed. Giselle said, I don't think that for a second it's you. Giselle then texted that she told her husband that his staff and doctor were worried about him, but they told her it's not true. And I guess I'm not talking to you today, before hanging up. The doctor also said that he was fighting to get access to the Twitter account. She went on, quote, please promise that that he'll never have access. I don't want to talk to him until his blood is tested. Who did I marry? Where is the man I married? In our conversation, Fetterman downplayed any supposed arguments with Giselle, telling me that she has her own voice and that he would never try to change her views, even if they differed from his. I think it's very common in a political marriage, he said. In a statement, Giselle suggested Jentleson was part of a conspiracy to damage her husband's reputation, saying Jentleson fed her scary, untrue stories about John's health. Yeesh. She added, I would talk to John's doctors about what Adam was telling me, and they would be confused. The doctors would tell me that their concerns were not with John, but with Adam. Any alleged concerns heard from me came straight from those lies, not from John's doctors or my own eyes. Oh, boy. But again, people thought he was missing regular checkups. Okay, so there's trouble in the actual assessments of him. So Adam Jentleson, who wrote this 1,600-word email in when he resigned and said, I'm worried, I'm concerned. Now Giselle, who has also been worried and concerned, is like, nah, he's lying. It's just endless. But this is from Fetterman. Hang on. Oh, about it, Palestinians. You can't reform a carton of sour milk, Fetterman told Ben Ami, according to notes from the meeting referring to the Palestinians. This is, I think, a guy from J Street. According to notes from the meeting referring to Palestinians, Fetterman said he did not believe in a two-state solution and claimed he had never met an Arab person who would condemn Hamas. Correction, the notes from the meeting stated, quote, only a single Arab he has met with that staff was present for wouldn't outright condemn Hamas. What? Fetterman went on to make statements that shocked people. In opposing a ceasefire, he said, let's get back to killing. A person who heard the conversation told me. He said, kill them all. In a statement, Fetterman denied the account, adding, any reference to killing was solely about Hamas. And I do support the destruction of that organization down to its last member. Well, buddy, that's your problem. Because the state of Israel has not distinguished between who is Hamas and who is not. Top officials, people in the Israeli cabinet have said there are no innocent civilians. There are no Palestinians who didn't support Hamas. They should be punished for this. They don't distinguish. They don't offer any kind of humanitarian corridors. They don't offer any kind of humanitarian aid. They do nothing to show that they believe there are innocent non-Hamas people inside of Gaza. So, and let's just keep it 100 finally. None of this is different from what Joe Biden was saying himself. This is the whole thing. They never believed in a ceasefire. All they believed is one side completely relents, no matter the Israeli hostages that might die. One side completely relents, and that's when we get ceasefire. We have to cease fire because there's nothing left to fire at. When Hamas fully says, okay, you can have control of Gaza. Well, they're never going to do that. That's not going to happen. So, but remember, this is Israel's definition of ceasefire. They've always believed that until the brief moment when, yes, the Trump administration was able to put some pressure and was like, don't do this, not for the inauguration. It makes us look bad. Anyway, terrifying. I hope that this article is a little bit of a wake-up call for Fetterman. We'll see. There's video of Fetterman also like refusing to wear a seatbelt on a plane. What are we doing?
Is your seatbelt on? Yes, it is. Okay, it needs to be visible for the crew at all times. That's not an us thing. That's a federal regulation. So, It's okay. It's okay.
I put my seatbelt on and I haven't said anything.
Okay, it's okay, but it just has to be visible to the crew at all times. It's a federal regulation, so if your seatbelt's on, it just has to be visible. And right now, it's not visible. We have an extender if you'd like that. It'll make it bigger so it can go outside of your sweatshirt. Would that work?
Oh. We have a seatbelt extension. So this is the pilot who's like, we know you're not wearing a seatbelt. It's a federal regulation. Please put it on. We have a seatbelt extender if you need one of those. And he's like, I have it. Oh, what do you mean?
Sir, if you want to go to Pittsburgh, it's simple. You have to follow our instructions where you're going to ask to get off here. We're not asking much. All that have, like all that we need is to be able to see your seatbelt at all times.
I've been flying for 30 years and I've never experienced this. I'm not sure what.
He's saying, if you want to go to Pittsburgh, I got to see your seatbelt.
Okay, well, it's a federal regulation, so if I don't make you do it, then I get in trouble, and I don't want to get in trouble because I like my job. So I'll ask you.
This is so wild. Okay, so someone is filming him, and she's kind of snickering. And again, this is this doesn't matter. Okay, Fetterman's refusing to wear a seatbelt on a plane. He's being scolded by the pilot. But given what we just heard about everything that he's going through, isn't it kind of par for the course? Doesn't it kind of fit like that on some random like he doesn't want to wear a seatbelt on a plane? He's gonna make that a thing. I love. He's like, it's a federal regulation. It's like, I am the Fed. I hope he gets the help he needs. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuation room. Do it.